right, thanks for hanging in there with me. I am back. I'm at my computer and I'm going to walk you through how to do a print and cut. I have the business edition of the software. I'm going to come in here and drop it down to the standard edition. So regardless of what version of the software you have, this will work for you. Additionally, I'm going to change this to letter size because you probably don't have a 12 by 12 printer like I do here. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is bring in our clip art. So I have a folder here of the clip art that I used, and we'll grab this guy. So what I'm doing is I'm just dragging and dropping it onto my mat. So what needs to happen next is that we need to trace this because right now it's just a picture. If I go to send and set this to cut, so I'm going to highlight it and set to cut, what's going to happen is it's going to cut this line, this red line that is around it. It is not going to cut right around the flamingo's body. So we need to fix that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to the right-hand side, open the trace panel, which I also call toast, because to me it looks like toast. Select the trace area, and I'm going to put a box completely around my two images. Now these are PNGs versus a JPEG. The biggest difference between a PNG and a JPEG is that the PNG, the background, that square that you saw a moment ago, is transparent, where with a JPEG you would actually see a white box. So I need to increase my threshold until my flamingos are completely covered as much as possible. In this case, I put it up to 100. And I'm going to do a trace and detach. What that's going to do is it's going to separate the flamingo from that white box that I showed you, or the transparent box that I showed you earlier, this right here. So I'm just going to delete that because we no longer need it. And now we can start working with our flamingo. So I'm going to go back to the send and show you something. Do you see the red line around it, which is the cut file? If you look closely, we didn't get up into his legs, her legs. I think it's a her. We'll call it a her. So I'm going to show you how to make it to where you can cut inside of the leg as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm still in my trace. If it's not there anymore, just re-click on it over here. Highlight them again. Push my threshold to 100. And this time I'm going to choose trace instead of trace and detach. Now when I move my flamingos off, you'll see that there's a lot of new cut lines. When you do a trace, everything comes in as what's called a compound path. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to release the compound path. Because when I'm ready to use this piece of the file, all I want is the outside of the body and the piece inside of its leg. I've highlighted those two by clicking on one, holding my shift key, and then clicking on the other piece. Make a compound path. And so as you can see, this all now becomes trash. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm clicking on the outline, holding my shift key, clicking on the inside of the leg, right click, compound path. Okay. So now what I want to do is when I'm cutting things, as I mentioned earlier, I like a white border around it so that it pops. So what I'm going to do is create an offset. We've got some stuff here. Let's delete that. So I'm highlighting my two flamingo bases, and I'm coming over here to this star that is called the Open Offset panel. When I click on it, the default is 0.125, which is way too big. So I just covered it, and I'm going to do a 0.035. And you'll see that it is just slightly larger than this piece here. So we don't need these anymore, so I'm going to delete them. Now I want to center these, so I'm highlighting them both. I'm coming up to the top here. I'm choosing center. And now I want to do that with this. Center them. All right, now I want to group them together. So when I move the flamingo, its shadow or offset follows. Size them the size that you want. Now let's set it up for a print and cut. So I'm going to right click on the white portion, which is the 8.5 by 11, and I'm going to show my registration marks. What's extremely important here is that you do not put anything within the mesh area of your mat. The reason for that is these markings are used when you load this into, after you send it to your printer, and then you put it on your mat, you load it in to cut. There's an optical eye right where your blade is at that reads these and knows where to cut your flamingo out of. All right, the other thing that I want to point out is if I zoom in closely, do you see how I have two sets of red lines? The reason for that is it's trying to cut the flamingo and cut our offset. But as I mentioned, we just want the offset. So I'm going to click on this and tell it just to cut the edge. And the edge is that outer part, which is our offset. I'm going to undo this because I've already sent it to the printer. So I don't know if you noticed, I moved it, and once you print it, you cannot move it, or it's not going to line up. Okay, at this point, you would take your printed piece, put it on your silhouette mat, load it in, and just choose cut. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Here at Arts and Crafts via Zoom, we offer a variety of different silhouette classes from beginners to advanced. They're pretty affordable. I believe the beginner one is $15 and the most expensive is $25. And it really has more to do with how much time we spend with you in the class. You know, some of the more advanced is, it takes longer to explain things. So if you're interested in learning more of how to master your silhouette software, hop on over to our website and sign up for a class. Hope you have a great day and enjoy the rest of the show.